According to the General Hospital recap for Friday, September 5th, Willow Tate received custody of Scout Quartermain, while Jacinda and Michael Corinthos. The evening spent together was revealed. Michael arrived at GH for blood work, and while waiting, he read the most recent news story about Drew Kane. After seeing a photo of Drew Kane doing body shots off Jacinda the escort, Michael approached Lulu Spencer about finding the woman in the photo. At one point, viewers saw a flashback to Michael chatting with Jacinda at the bar the night before and buying her a drink. Tracy Quartermain previously urged Michael to obtain an alibi, so what? Michael is obviously hoping to take advantage of Jacinda. Speaking of alibis, did Diane Miller advise Sonny Corinthos to get one now that the cops were investigating Drew's shooting? Sonny was more interested in discussing the entire Judge Eva Heron situation. Sonny asked Diane to get him information about Jen Sidwell, but Diane told him he was on his own because Sidwell was a client of her firm. Back at the hospital, Portia Robinson and Nina Reeves looked for information from one another. When Jacinda showed up at Portia, were they both together's office to advocate for more funding? Willow, did she face Lulu Spencer? These are off-the-record questions. Willow used the opportunity to cast suspicion on the dangerous Michael and Sonny. Felicia Scorpio found Willow to inform her that she was Scout's custodial guardian while Drew was unconscious. Willow was thrown, but she was determined to take Scout in. Why didn't Willow? Despite the fact that she did not have her own home, Elizabeth Baldwin welcomed Scout into hers. What about Molly Lansing Davis? Can't seem to get Drew? The restraining orders were lifted. Alexis Davis prepared a bag for Scout and approached Willow, telling her to take good care of her granddaughter. Felicia eventually responded with updates, as Scout had not. He hasn't been seen since breakfast at camp. Willow and Alexis were stunned when Scout went missing. Back with Molly, she discovered that Christina Corinthos Davis recently lashed out at Willow and disparaged her as a mother. Molly argued with Christina but ignored Cody Bell, a phone call and a text message to 911. At Jack Brennan's office, he informed Colette Moreau that she was being transferred to another field office. Dee pushed back one too many times. Colette brought up his missing agents just as Anna Devane appeared, but she couldn't. Brennan refused to reveal any information. Brennan also mentioned that Carly Spencer was with him last night, so it appeared that this meeting was primarily about giving Carly an alibi. Colette returned to the office once it was empty and entered the code provided by Jocelyn Jacks. After 2 failed attempts, Colette realized it was bad information. Brennan returned with a gun and cornered Colette, threatening to take her to a black site unless she revealed who she really worked for. At the Five Poppies Resort, Jason Morgan made up an excuse about a change in his business strategy. Pascal seemed pleased about it. Mr. Moore had returned so quickly and helped him settle into his old room. However, it wasn't long before an armed man opened fire on Jason, forcing him to duck. Jason overpowered the man, took control of his gun, and killed him. Did Jason go to Britt Westbourne? Soon after, I entered her room and discovered some instructions on how to locate her. After entering the lab and entering the code, Jason appeared perplexed by what he saw. In captivity, Jocelyn Jacks admitted that she made a mistake by not running after Vaughn jumped that guy. Did Vaughn? I didn't like the idea of Jocelyn dying and was upset that she was dragged into a mission like this so quickly. Pakel threatened to make the fake newlyweds appear to have died in a boating accident, but he later discovered Jocelyn and Vaughn were still useful. According to General Hospital spoilers, Vaughn and Jocelyn still face some risky situations, so stay tuned. CDL? Where you want to be for fantastic General Hospital spoilers, news and updates, so check back soon for more GH information. General Hospital spoilers are available for Monday, September 8, 2025. Cody Bell and Molly Lansing Davis are expected to win in the upcoming episode. Britt Westbourne is alarmed. In addition, Anna Devane narrows her list of prime suspects. Continue reading and let's discuss what's coming up in the next episode of the ABC soap opera. Jason Morgan jumps. Let's start with Jason Morgan, who narrowly escaped death. Next, Jason locates Britt. While the brunette is alarmed, Jason promises to. He's not going to hurt her. He's there to get her out of there. What about Jocelyn Jacks? Grave danger. There is still a problem. Britt understands that Vaughn and Jocelyn Jacks are still in grave danger. As a result, She must inform him of the agent's location as he takes action. Read more. Find out what happened on the most recent episode of General Hospital. In the hostage room, Jocelyn and Vaughn are still tied together. The girl turns her head to look behind her, questioning whether this job is truly worth his life. Meanwhile, Jack Brennan is offered a deal. Is this a deal between agents? Safe release in exchange for the contents of that small black box? Molly Lansing Davis? Discovery General Hospital spoilers for Monday, September 8th reveal that Cody will continue to try to contact Molly. When she discovers that Scout Quartermain is missing, she will freak out. I have a feeling Cody or Willow Tate will find the little girl. At the hospital, Alexis Davis informs Willow that they must locate Scout immediately. Could Willow not only find Scout, but also help her reunite with her family? Willow is currently facing widespread opposition. Scout, on the other hand, could be used as leverage in negotiations. What about one child in exchange for her own? Meanwhile, Ava Jerome informs Christina Corinthos Davis that they must handle this immediately. Anna Devane? Anna's prime suspects. In the next episode, Anna will focus on her primary suspects. While speaking with Dante Falconeri and Harrison Chase, Anna is asked if she believes the two are connected. It appears that an arrest will occur soon, but which case will it be for, and who will face charges? This storyline is only getting started, so stay tuned. Which storyline are you most looking forward to seeing on Monday, September 8th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Keep watching ABC soap operas to find out what happens next. Willow sat in the quiet hum of a small-town courtroom, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, looked over her glasses at the documents in front of her. The custody hearing for Scout and Willow's 5-year-old daughter had been a long and arduous process spanning months of tense meetings, legal jargon, and sleepless nights. Scout, Ethan, the father, had fought hard to keep partial custody, arguing that his recent sobriety and stable job as a mechanic made him a suitable parent. Willow knew better. She had witnessed the late-night texts, broken promises, and Scout's behavior. When Ethan canceled visits at the last minute, his eyes dimmed. The judge's voice broke through the silence, steady and final. Based on the evidence presented, Willow Grace Thompson is awarded full custody of Scout Marie Thompson. Willow felt a rush of relief, and her breath caught as tears welled up in her eyes. She looked to her lawyer, who gave her a small, reassuring nod. Scout, are you sitting with Willow's mother in the back of the room was too young to fully comprehend the gravity of the situation, but her tiny hand waved at Willow, a bright smile on her face. Willow saw it as a hard-won victory and a promise to her daughter that she would always fight for her, no matter what the cost. Across town, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in orange and pink, Jacinda and Michael were getting ready for an evening that had been planned for weeks. Jacinda stood in front of her bedroom mirror, smoothing the fabric of her deep blue dress, which had a hem that came just above her knees. Her dark hair was pulled up into a loose bun, with a few curls escaping to frame her face. She felt a flutter of nerves, similar to those she had. She remembered how she felt when she met Michael at a local book club 2 years ago. Tonight, wasn't? Is it just any night? It was a celebration of their decision to move in together, which felt both exciting and terrifying. Michael, ever the planner, had insisted on continuing the evening. Jacinda had reluctantly agreed, but her curiosity buzzed like a persistent bee. In the living room, Michael adjusted his tie, which was unusual for someone who preferred jeans and flannel. His sandy hair was neatly combed, and his hazel eyes sparkled with excitement and mischief as he checked his phone for reservations. They made it at La Bellevue, the only upscale restaurant in their small town. Willow, wasn't today emotionally draining? It isn't over. After the hearing, did she drive Scout to her mother? Scout would spend the evening at her cousin's house, playing with them. Willow, Scout's mother, a warm woman with a knack for baking, had already set out a plate of chocolate chip cookies. Favorite. Did you do well, sweetheart? Willow was hugged by her mother as she spoke. Willow nodded, her throat tight. Was she still processing the judge's words? She wanted nothing more than to collapse on the couch with Scout curled up beside her, watching one of her daughters. beloved animated films. But tonight, she had promised to meet Jacinda and Michael for drinks after dinner, allowing her to catch up with her oldest friend and celebrate their respective milestones. Willow put on a simple black top and jeans, pulled her blonde hair into a ponytail, and went to the Rusty Anchor, a cozy bar with dim lighting and a jukebox that always seemed to play the same classic rock songs. At La Belle Vue, Jacinda and Michael sat at a corner table with candlelight flickering between them. The restaurant was small but elegant, with white tablecloths and a menu featuring dishes such as herb-crusted lamb and roasted vegetable risotto. Michael had chosen a bottle of red wine, and while the waiter poured it, Jacinda can't help but notice Michael's mannerisms. The fingers tapped nervously against the table. "Are you okay?" she inquired, tilting her head. Michael grinned too quickly. "Is it never better?" he said, though his tone hinted at something Jacinda couldn't detect. "I can't quite place it." They discussed their plans for the new apartment. Jacinda wanted to paint the living room a soft gray, and Michael had already started sketching ideas for a custom bookshelf. The conversation flowed easily as it always did, but there was a sense of anticipation, as if a storm was about to break. When did the waiter bring them dessert? A shared slice of chocolate torte? Michael's hand slipped into his pocket and Jacinda? Her breath caught. She had a fleeting thought that he was about to propose, but he only pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of the apartment keys, which gleamed in his palm. Are you really doing this?" He spoke softly but clearly. Jacinda laughed, relief and joy mixing in her chest as she reached across the table for his hand. Willow returned to the Rusty Anchor just as the bar was beginning to fill with the Friday night crowd. She noticed Jacinda and Michael already sitting at a high-top table, their heads close together, laughing about something Willow couldn't understand. "I can't hear." She waved as she weaved through the crowd, then slid onto a stool beside them. "Do you two look happy?" She spoke, her voice warm but tired. "Jacinda?" Her eyes lit up as she recounted their dinner, vividly describing the food, while Michael chimed in with exaggerated complaints about the small portion sizes. Willow listened, sipping a glass of white wine, and felt the weight of the day gradually lift. She told them about the custody hearing, her voice steady but full of emotion as she described Scout. Smiled in the courtroom. Jacinda reached out and squeezed her hand, while Michael raised his glass in a quiet toast. "To new beginnings?" he said, and Willow felt a lump rise in her throat. She clinked her glass against theirs, thankful for friends who understood the struggles she faced. "I've fought, and there are more to come." As the evening progressed, the bar became louder, and the jukebox began playing a slow ballad that made the air feel softer, more intimate. Willow felt a pang of longing as Jacinda and Michael exchanged glances, one of those unspoken exchanges that couples develop over time. Not for romance but for simple connection, the kind that didn't. It does not come with court dates or endless worry. She remembered Scout, who was most likely sleeping at her mother's house by now, her small body curled up under a quilt. Willow. Her phone buzzed and she glanced at it. Scout's mom sent her this photo, which shows her with cookie crumbs on her chin and smiling at the camera. Willow showed the picture to Jacinda and Michael, who cooed over it, their voices full of affection. For a brief moment, the three of them were simply present, sharing stories and laughter. The kind of night that felt like a balm after a long, hard fight. The conversation shifted to the future. Jacinda and Michael? What are their plans for their apartment, Willow's hopes for Scout? It's kindergarten year. They also talked about the small things like the new coffee shop opening downtown, the upcoming town fair, and how the leaves were already turning despite the fact that it was still summer. There's a lingering warmth. Michael, the consummate storyteller, began telling a tale about a disastrous camping trip. "I was taken as a teenager, complete with a raccoon stealing his backpack and a tent collapsing from the rain." Jacinda laughed until tears streamed down her cheeks, and Willow found herself giggling despite the exhaustion tugging at her edges. It was the type of night that reminded her that life could still be good, even on the worst days. As the clock approached midnight, the trio decided to call it a night. Outside, the air was cool, and the stars shone against a velvet sky. Jacinda hugged Willow tightly and whispered, Are you the strongest person I know?" Michael clapped Willow on the shoulder, his smile broad and genuine. They parted ways, Jacinda and Michael walking to their cars, hands intertwined, while Willow walked to hers, her steps lighter than theirs. It had been months. She drove home in silence, turning off the radio and allowing the quiet to settle around her. When she pulled into her driveway, she sat for a moment, staring at the small house where she and Scout lived. Wasn't it? Is it perfect? Were there cracks in the walls and a leaking faucet in the kitchen? However, it was theirs, and with custody secured, it felt like a fortress. Willow kicked off her shoes and sank into the couch, pulling a throw blanket over her legs. She thought about Jacinda and Michael and how they were. They looked at each other across the table and she smiled. Their evening had been a celebration of love and taking risks together. Willow's victory was unique, quieter, but no less significant. She fought for Scout and the life they could create together, and she had won. As she closed her eyes, the weight of the day fading into exhaustion, she felt a quiet certainty settle in her chest. She would pick up Scout the next day and they would resume together, unbreakable, home. How did Willow, Jacinda, and Michael's stories weave together in these small human moments? Courtrooms and candlelit dinners, bar stools and communal laughter. What was life like in their small town? It wasn't always easy, but it was full of connections that stood strong in the face of storms. Willow's custody battle had been a marathon, with each step marked by fear and hope, but she had crossed the finish line. Jacinda and Michael's evening, sparkling with possibility, signaled the beginning of a new chapter, one they'd write together. And as the night faded into memory, the three of them continued on, each in their own way, buoyed by the people who made the difficult days bearable and the good ones memorable. The courtroom, with its stern judge and rows of wooden benches, had been a battlefield, but Willow emerged as a mother as well as a warrior. Her love for Scout was quiet and fierce, unwavering even in the face of tearful promises and polished arguments. She'd spent nights poring over legal documents, her kitchen table buried in papers, and her coffee was cold by midnight. She cried in the shower, but Scout couldn't. I couldn't hear anything and smiled through playdates to hide my stress. But every moment of doubt, every sleepless hour had led to this. Scout was hers completely, legally, and irrevocably. The weight of that truth gave her a sense of freedom, a release from the fear that had plagued her for years. Meanwhile, Jacinda and Michael were creating something new, with their evening being a tapestry of small gestures and big dreams. The restaurant, with its soft lighting and clinking glasses, had served as a stage for their love, allowing them to pause and see each other clearly. Jacinda? Michael's bright, unguarded laugh had filled the space. As it always has, her steady presence grounded her. Their decision to live together wasn't, is it just about sharing a space? It was about choosing each other, day after day, amidst the chaos and magic of life. What about Michael's keys? Whose pocket is it? The promise I'd shown her over dessert was not only of a new home, but also of a life intertwined. At the Rusty Anchor, the three friends had found a rhythm, with their conversation alternating between the profound and the mundane. Willow's story spilled out in pieces, the weight of the custody battle offset by the warmth of her friends' support. Jacinda, the ever-present empath, listened intently, her hand never leaving Willow's side. Michael's easygoing humor kept the mood light, and his stories reminded us that joy and struggle can coexist. The bar, with its worn wooden floors and flickering neon signs, felt like a safe haven, a place where they could be themselves, unguarded and authentic. Scout, though absent from the evening, was Willow's heartbeat. Story. Every choice, fight, and tear had been for her. Willow's photo. Scout's mother sent. Cookie-crumbed grin served as a reminder of why everything mattered. Scout's laughter, her endless questions, and her small hand on Willow's. These were the things that kept Willow going, even when the days seemed hopeless. And now that custody has been secured, Willow can imagine a future in which Scout's world was stable, safe, and full of the kind of love that don't falter. Jacinda and Michael? The evening, while different in tone, was no less significant. Their dinner at La Bellevue had been both a celebration and a reckoning, a moment to acknowledge the leap they were making. Moving in together meant combining lives, habits, and quirks. It entailed navigating disagreements over which couch to keep and how to divide the bills. But it also meant mornings spent tangled in sheets and evenings cooking dinner together, a shared life built on countless small decisions. The photo of the keys, the candlelight, and Michael's hand found hers? These were the threads of their story, woven together in one perfect night. As the night progressed, Willow, Jacinda, and Michael felt closer than ever. They were more than just friends. They were anchors, each holding the others together in their own way. Willow's strength, Jacinda? Is it warm, Michael's sense of humor? They complemented each other, filling in the gaps of life. Challenges were left behind. The town around them, with its quiet streets and familiar faces, served as a backdrop for their stories, a place where triumphs and joys were shared, and burdens were lifted through the act of telling. Willow. Her drive home was a time for reflection, with the silence serving as a blank canvas for her thoughts. The courtroom victory, the laughter at the bar, Scout's photo, all of it swirled in her head, a mosaic of a day that had altered everything. She thought about Jacinda and Michael and how they were. They'd toasted to new beginnings, and she felt a quiet pride in her own. The small and imperfect house represented her resilience, providing a space for her and Scout to grow, heal, and thrive. Despite their differences, the evening served as a bridge between their past and future. For Willow, it marked the end of a long battle and the beginning of a new chapter, one in which she could breathe a little easier. For Jacinda and Michael, it was a step toward a shared life, a commitment made with keys and quiet promises rather than rings or vows. And it served as a reminder to all three that life, in all of its messiness and beauty, was best lived together, in the small moments that made up the whole. Could Brit? As she stood in the hospital's cold, sterile hallway, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that was creeping up her spine. Her hands gripped the file more tightly than she realized, her knuckles turning white as her gaze darted around, scanning every shadow. Something was wrong? Is something deeply wrong? Every instinct within her screamed for her to move, but she remained frozen, trapped between fear and confusion. The corridor's silence enveloped her, broken only by the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. She tried to keep her breathing steady, telling herself it was just another long night on call, but the soft echo of hurried footsteps behind her made her heart skip a beat. She turned abruptly, and her chest tightened as she realized she wasn't alone. A man stood at the far end of the hallway, partially obscured by the shadows, and watched her. Could she? I couldn't make out his face, but there was something about his stance. Tense, alert, and unsettlingly concentrated on her. Brit swallowed hard and forced herself to walk forward, pretending not to notice, but with each step the air became thicker. Then, just as she approached the nurses, her phone started buzzing at the station. She yanked it out of her pocket, hoping for a distraction, but the message she read nearly brought her to her knees. Scout is missing. Her mind went blank for a split second before the panic hit like a tidal wave. Scout, Jason's daughter, gone. She stumbled backward, clutching the counter for support, her breathing coming in short, uneven gasps. She grabbed her phone and called Jason, her voice trembling as she told him the horrifying news. Didn't Jason? Don't hesitate.